Michael Pillsbury served as an outside advisor to President Trump. He's urging the United States to stay aggressive. His book is called The 100 Years Marathon. Mr. Pillsbury argues that China has a plan to replace the United States as the global superpower. Michael joins me. Now, good to see you. Thank you. I would imagine if you were to answer the question, is Donald Trump too tough? You'd probably say you're not either not tough enough or just about right.
Well, as of Sunday, it's just about right, don't you think?
What purpose did it serve to make those tweets and those comments?
Well, I argued in this morning's Wall Street Journal in great detail why the tariffs being increased are a good idea. It's not to seek a short-term confrontation or drive the market down, obviously. It's to have an agreement that the Chinese have an incentive to comply with. There have been a lot of problems, including Nancy Pelosi's criticism in 2001 with the Chinese not following the WTO rulings against them. So if they have the tariffs increased a bit now, and then they believe, which I think they do, that they can earn their way to lower tariffs by implementing faithfully the agreements that they've made, then this is a short-term tariff problem. It's not a permanent thing. The president has said several times he wants zero tariffs with China. That's the goal.
But this ratcheting up,
yes,
comes about not because they've broken an agreement.
Yes, it does.
Well,
yes,
hang on.
They've reneged on some written agreements.
They haven't.
That's the problem.
Those agreements haven't been signed yet, and they're negotiating documents between the two sides. And the suggestion is that the Chinese are not going to follow through on what they'd said they would do. That's basically the gist of it, and that relates to technology transfer issues. But my point is, in the battle of the carrot and the stick, it seems to be a lot of stick and little carrot.
No, there's quite a bit of carrot. The Chinese have what they call their 10 negotiating points, which were leaked, I think, by the Chinese about a year ago. And they're going to get some of those points. They also want better access to the American market. They want to purchase high-tech American goods. They've got a list of things they want, and they're going to get some of them. So the prospects for a good deal are still very good. I'm an optimist. I've been involved in some of the details of what's been happening. I think you mischaracterized the reason for the tariffs put on Sunday. The word renege, the president used the word renegotiate. This was expanded on by a briefing yesterday, that they're taking back things that they agreed to. You're right, it was a verbal agreement. Liu He didn't sign anything, but there were texts, and they were worked on in great detail. When they began to take that back over the past week in a very aggressive manner, that's what triggered the president's response. I don't think he wanted to do this. I think it was caused by the Chinese negotiating in bad faith. Now, there's a reason for that. They've got hawks and doves, or hawks and reformers in Beijing. It's possible the reformers were okay with the deal. The hawks finally got a look at it, the whole 150 pages, and they were shocked by the concessions that had been made. So they got their chance. You know, now the president has called them on it. So President Xi, I suspect, is now going to move more toward restoring the original agreement. And these tariffs then can be used as an incentive for China to keep their commitments. You can be very optimistic about this.
It's interesting that Chuck Schumer is also urging a very hard line,
and Nancy Pelosi as well.
Yeah, which suggests that the president, enjoys broad-based support. I mean, we can discuss, we can argue about the tactics of tariffs being raised and what it does to the market, but versus the strategy, which everybody seems to be on message with.
I think it's the accumulation, Richard, of intelligence information over the last 4 or 5 years that the Chinese really have been engaging in misconduct in a whole variety of ways. One of the most dramatic is the WTO ruling against them, that they weren't letting American credit cards be used in China. They said, okay, we agree. Then they didn't do it. They still haven't. Just 5 years has gone by. And in the meantime, their own credit card got boosted worldwide. So they now have the highest revenue of any credit card in the world. So that times 100 gives you some idea of what the Chinese have been up to. So, it's got to stop.
Right. do you believe that the tariffs, the greater tariffs, I guess the final issue is, don't take a bad deal. Don't be fobbed off with some mercantilistic, we'll buy $2 trillion worth of your stuff. If you don't fundamentally alter the balance, then it's worth having the tariffs with the attendant market disruption.
Well, that's right. And the good news is Xi Jinping's speech last week at the Belt and Road Summit in Beijing. He endorsed a lot of this in principle. That's why I present to you the theory of the hawks versus the reformers, that it seemed as though President Xi was going along with all this in his speech. Somebody got a chance to let's have a test of strength with President Trump and see if we can back off on some of these concessions. It didn't work, but it doesn't mean the end of the talks. It means the process goes forward. And frankly, if we can get a good deal where there's no cheating in the next year or two, we avoid a lot of trade friction that would also drive the market down next year during the election in 2020. Nobody wants that in the White House.
We'll talk more about it. Michael, thank you very much. We did need you today to help us understand the wherewithal of all of this. It's much appreciated that you've given us time.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.